Alright, so I'm out in my front yard. I've finally got all my PVC connected going to the pump. So I got my, I glued all that in. That's going to be a drain. I can pull that little cap off at the end of the season, blow my lines out, the water can come out there, run my PVC up into my pump. And I've got my hose bib. That's going to be my permanent hose bib. I've been using that for about a week now, I guess. A little less than a week. And then it elbows in, comes up into my booster pump, which is finally everything's connected on the outgoing side now. So, and I've got everything going down there. I'm going to start connecting my poly to my valves. And then from my valves, I can start running my lateral lines and start running my main to my backyard. So I'm going to put some rock down and start putting that all together, and I'll show you once I make a little progress on that. So I got everything connected. It took a little bit longer than I expected because I had to separate my ball valve and my T that I'm going to use to blow my lines out. I had to separate them. I had one long structure I had built, but turns out it was just too long to make it work. And as big as this space was for two valves, it's not wide enough to do it the way I want. So I had to do a little rearranging, but I figured it all out. So I've got my main coming down. This is my main, and for the moment I'm just plugging it with a ball valve. The ball valve will keep it from even flowing that way, and it'll just flow into my front valve. So what I'm going to try to do is get my front yard completely done before I start connecting the main and everything in the backyard. I want to get some water to my front yard. I want to get the booster pump wired, and I want to get all the power going to the valves and make sure everything's working the way I planned. So all in all, not too bad. Pretty happy with this. So I've started to run my first lateral lines. This is going to be to one of my front zones, and I'm just starting by connecting some poly to the valve, and then I have a T for the different directions going to go. So at this point, the whole thing is just assembly now, is connecting all the hoses, cutting things to fit. I'm going to be doing two separate types of poly in the front because I'm having trouble getting it right now. They're backlogged due to COVID. So I'm trying 160 PSI first for one zone up front. I only have two in the front. And then I'm going to do 120. I'm going to see. They say the 160 is harder to work with. So far, it's been okay. And then I'm going to make a call. I have to buy about 800 more feet. So I'm going to make a call on which one. I just want to see, because the 160 PSI is only 33 cents a foot versus 50 cents a foot for the other stuff. So I'm going to work with both up front just to see if it seems reasonable to use the 160. Why spend more money? Mostly it's going to have a higher rating. It's just less flexible. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm going to start putting it together, and then once I get to where I'm putting some heads in, I'll make a little video showing how to connect everything for the heads using saddles for one area, and then the other at the end of a line you have to use a different type of connecting. You're not using a saddle. So I'll show some videos of that. So I finally got all my poly in, and I've got a couple heads in, and you can see I'm walking over here. It's super bright out today, sun's shining. I'm actually dying out here. It's kind of warm, but I've got one head in over here already. I had to kind of learn how to do it, so I'm going to make a quick video to show anybody who maybe hasn't ever done this how I'm doing it, how I was told to do it by the guys at the hardware store. So let's go do that. But I've got all my poly down for one of the zones in my front yard, which is a huge benchmark for us because we've been doing this for a while, and between waiting for parts to come in and just needing to take a breather since we're doing it ourselves, it's a pretty big job. It's like a giant victory just to have one of the zones almost done. We have two heads in. I got to put three more in, and there's two different ways to connect them, so I'm going to show some videos right now on how to do that. Okay, so I'm going to show how I put a head on at the end of a line, put a sprinkler head on. I've got the end of my line here, so I'm going to use one of these guys, which goes in directly like this. I'm going to use the rubber mallet and the soap and pound it in there, and then we clamp it with this guy, And then once that's in there, I loaded up a one of these connectors. I think it's a 1.5 inch connector. Put some Teflon tape on it and screwed it into the sprinkler head. This is a 15-foot nozzle. And then what you're essentially doing is you're gonna see where you're gonna take this funny pipe, is what they call it, because it's a little more flexible, and it helps you set how high you want your head to be. It gives you a little more flexibility than, say, this big 1-inch poly. They have risers that are plastic. The guy at the place I am buying all my stuff from told me that that's kind of the funny pipe is sort of like the newer way to do it, and they work a little better. It gives you a little bit easier time when you're burying your head. So what I'm going to do is once I get it in, you're going to connect one end of the funny pipe here and clamp it, and then one end of the funny pipe here and clamp it. And then since it's a little more flexible, you have room to go up or down. The hole I'm going to put it in is, my leg's in the way, but it's going to be right about here, and I'll be connecting it across that distance. I had read and seen videos where people say you shouldn't go over 2 feet. This is going to be about a little over 2 feet. I kind of take it hit or miss. If it's a little over, I'm not stressing about it. Just going to do it and let it be how it is. So I'm going to show you how I start pounding these guys in and connecting it all, and then you'll have seen my method anyway, how I do it. So let's get to that. All right, so let's get some soap on this guy and just spread it around real quick, just grease it up a little. And actually, I also like to throw a little soap in my hand and get it in here around the edges, just grease up everything a little bit. These are kind of easy because you can use the rubber mallet. They're not as hard as, like, say, in the middle of the line when you have to put in a T or something. Those are quite a bit more work. And then I'm just going to take this guy and we're just going to tap it in. Just tap it in. There we go. So that guy's in. We take our little clamp here, and let's see this side. I want it on this side just because it's easier for me to screw it in that way. And we'll use our drill and tighten this guy up. And let's see. Alrighty, and get it a little snug with the power drill. And these are pretty easy. In the beginning, I broke a few of them pretty easily. They're not super, you can go a little too hard on them, so it just needs to be tight enough. And I finish them all off with the socket. So, a ratchet, whatever you call it. And that's how that guy gets connected. Alrighty, so now what we're gonna do is that's about good. I'm gonna call that done. So now my next step is I'm gonna take, where did I put the head? The head's over here. I'm gonna take the head, and now you can see how once you connect the funny pipe, you go here to here. So I'm gonna put the phone down. We're gonna measure how far we need the funny pipe, and then I'll show you how we cut the funny pipe. That's super easy too. And then we'll connect that guy, and boom, we'll be done. All right, so now we're gonna put this on one end of the funny pipe before we cut it, because it's kind of a weird angle. So we want to connect the one end to the funny pipe, and then we're gonna kind of eyeball and measure it, because you can cut it a little long and fix it, but you can't. If you cut it too short, then you got to pull that off and pull the funny pipe off and try to fix it on the fly, and that's a little difficult. Or just use it somewhere else. So I take my clamp, I throw it on first. That way it's a little bit easier. And then the way I'm getting these in is I'm just brute force. Oh, I didn't soap up the interior of this guy. Let me get that guy. So just get a little soap in this guy here. And these go in kind of easy for me anyway. I just kind of muscle them in there the best I can. I keep cutting my hands on the clamps because I'm not paying attention. I just wind it around and force it until it gets as far as I feel comfortable with it in. So I'm getting there. See, it's pretty close, but I like to try to get it as close to the base as possible. And we're pretty much there. And that's good. And then now, because my clamp's on ahead of time, I don't have to take it apart. I can just get it on there and we'll screw it in. And I think I want to sit it in the hole first so I have a rough idea of where it's going to be and which way I want up. Use the funny pipe the way it's shaped to sort of to your advantage. So I think that's probably the best I'm going to get. So let me tighten that guy up real quick, and then we'll cut the other end and connect that end, and voila, we'll have a beautiful, that's a little too low. There we go. We'll have a beautiful sprinkler head at 15 feet, and you'll have seen how the genius of my method. Let's get this guy tighter, and that's that. All right, so now I'm looking at where I'm gonna make my cut on my funny pipe. So I see where I want my head to be, about here. And I'm gonna take this guy, just kind of eyeball it. I haven't done them all this way. I think each one of them is a little weirder, a little different, because I have where the curve of this pipe and then the curve of this pipe, you're trying to use it to your best. So to me, I think my cut's somewhere, it's gonna come on like this, and I think I can make the funny pipe work if I cut it somewhere in this neighborhood. I'd rather cut it a little long than short, so I'm just gonna make the cut now. And we're using these guys here. And the way these work, this one's kind of broken, but it works not well enough. I'm just kind of, you put it in like this, and it has a little ratchet, and you just cut like that. It's nice and clean. So next we're gonna reposition, and we're gonna see if we can get this guy on the other side, and then we'll see where our head is. So we'll be back in a second. All right, so now we're gonna put this, connect this end, and then make sure it's on the right way. And so put my clamp on first, get my soap in there and on there. So a little soap on that guy, a little soap in there, and this one's gonna be another one where it's just muscle getting it in there, get it around there, get that all lubed up. And then it's really just brute forcing it in there. Just sometimes easier than others. Knock on wood, this one was pretty easy, thankful. So now before I tighten it, I look at my overall, where my head is, to make sure that I got the hose twisted in the way I want it. So I set it where it's gonna go, and it looks like I'll be able to make that work. I can move it this way, I can move the hose this way or this way, but that works pretty well as it is. So I'm gonna just go ahead and tighten that last clamp up, which is gonna be right here, and my sprinkler head will be in there. I'm not gonna show you that. You can figure out how to tighten a clamp. One thing I'll mention is that I usually leave the clamps a little bit up. I don't put it right at the edge, a little bit ahead of there, so you might want to do that. Not sure why I do that. I was taught that. I've seen it on, radiators, things like that. So in any case, I'm gonna tighten this guy up, and then this guy's done. So that's where we're at, and we're gonna spend the rest of the afternoon putting some more poly down into some of our zones in the backyard, and I'll show some videos of that later. Thanks for watching.